Hi everyone, it's Shannon from the Loophole Fox, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this adorable pumpkin. I am so excited. It's finally fall. I've been waiting on pins and needles to start doing fall projects, and here is one of my favorites. I really love these pumpkins. They're super cute. They look really cute on my mantle above my fireplace. And the best thing about these pumpkins is you can do whatever makes you happy. Well, I do have a stitch pattern and I do show you how to work this pumpkin in its entirety. Make this pumpkin yours and make it how it makes you happy. So while I do use a certain type of yarn, a certain hook, all of that for this, you can use any type of yarn in any color to make any color pumpkins that you like. Okay, so you'll see down below in the description that I have included a link to the written blog post if you prefer written patterns. I'll also include links to the hook that I'm using and places where you can find all of the materials I've used, minus this stick. This is a stick my puppy brought home for me. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started making these. Alright, so let's get to making a pumpkin. The first thing you need to know about this pumpkin pattern is I use the even moss stitch. This stitch is simply a repeat of a slip stitch and then a half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet, so on and so forth. So it is a fairly easy pattern to remember, but if you don't know how to slip stitch or half double crochet, I would highly recommend going and learning those stitches before trying this out. I will go pretty slowly through this, but the purpose of this tutorial is to create a pumpkin, not to teach those stitches. So I highly recommend that you learn those and get confident first. Okay, so the second thing is the tools you'll need. You will need yarn and a corresponding hook. The pattern itself is written to medium 4 weight, but it doesn't matter. Pumpkins come in all sizes. I love them regardless of their size, so you can use super bulky, you can use light, anything in between, that's up to you. All it's going to do is change the size of your pumpkin, and if you want them a bit bigger or smaller, that's really up to you. If you're learning, you can grab any scrap yarn and just give it a go. You'll need, with medium weight, about 2 to 2.5 ounces of yarn, so not a whole lot. If you use a different weight, you might need more or less, so just keep in mind. Okay, so I'm using the medium 4. I love this yarn in burnt orange, it's so pretty, and my Furls Streamline crochet hook in 5mm, because it does correspond. You will also need some scissors and a tapestry needle, and you'll need something to put in the top of your pumpkin. I choose sticks. We have them in abundance here, and I like the organic look, how they've broken off of the tree, or how my puppies chewed on it. You can use whatever you like. You can use sticks, you could crochet a stem, you could leave it stemless, or you could get cinnamon sticks or something like that. That's really up to you, however you want to top them yourself. Okay, so while we're working this pattern, we are going to make our chain and work up. So we're going to make the width, and we want it to be just about twice as tall as it is wide, because we will be wrapping it around. When we're done, we'll turn it on its side and seam it. Okay, that'll make a bit more sense as we get there, but I just wanted to remind you that we do want it to be just about twice as tall as it is wide. When you're working the even moss stitch, you want to have an odd number of stitches, which is confusing. Even moss stitch, odd number of stitches. So if you want to make different sizes, if you want to make one really small or really big or just different sizes, go ahead and chain however many, go ahead and make however many stitches you want. Just make sure that you have an odd stitch number, okay? So we're going to work this pattern exactly as I've written it, which is to 27 stitches. So to get started, we need to chain 28. Okay. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I have 28 chains here for 27 stitches. Of course, one of these chains counts as the turning chain. So to get started on your first row, you want to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. Okay, and then we're going to half double crochet in the next. So of course, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Okay, the next one, we're going to slip stitch, so insert hook, yarn over, pull through, pull through. Next is half double crochet. So we're going to repeat this across the row, where we insert, pull through for a slip stitch, yarn over, insert hook, pull through all 3 for a half double crochet. So just continue this across the row, and you should have 27 stitches, and you should end on a slip stitch. Okay? Okay, so there's our first row. It might look a little messy right now with all of the loops kind of hanging out, but don't worry, it's going to clean itself up. Okay, so for row 2, we are going to chain 1 and turn our work. So you can kind of see the texture starting to come out with the third loop of the half double crochet starting to stick out there. Okay, so for row 2, we chained 1, we turn, and in this very first stitch, we're going to slip stitch. Okay, and in the next one, we're going to half double crochet. And as you've probably guessed, across this row, we're going to slip stitch, half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet, all the way across. You want to make sure you are always putting a slip stitch into a slip stitch and a half double crochet into a half double crochet. Okay, so I'll do a few more with you. I've done my half double, so I'm going to slip stitch. Okay, and then half double crochet. When you're doing these half double crochets, make sure you don't pick up that third loop there. See how this third loop is hanging out here? And when you look at it from the top, there's your stitch here. You don't want to pick up this third loop that's hanging out, because that's what provides the texture of the even moss stitch. Okay, so slip stitch and half double crochet, making sure we don't pick up this third loop. Okay, slip stitch, half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet. So keep working this along the row, repeating half slip stitch and then half double crochet. Okay, so we're at the end of this row now. I just have one half double crochet and one slip stitch to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and put that half double crochet and you will see I have one space left for the final slip stitch, so make sure that you end on that last slip stitch. It might be a little tight if you're a tight crocheter like I am. Okay, so now when you can see the start of the texture there, and you can really see it on this side. Isn't it pretty? All right, so row 3, same thing, chain 1. We're going to slip stitch in the first, half double crochet in the second, okay, slip stitch in the next, and half double crochet. Once again, making sure we don't pick up the third loop. Okay, so just continue working on these rows. They're very easy to remember. Every row is the same. You do half double crochet, slip stitch, all the way through. So you'll want to complete this for 57 rows. So make sure when you're crocheting, you either keep tallies, have a stitch marker, something like that, so you know how many rows you have. If you lose your place, it's not a big deal. Just keep crocheting until it's about twice as tall as it is wide, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing that, and I'll meet you back when I'm done. All right, so we've done our big piece. We're at our 57 rows, and we're getting ready to make it into a pumpkin. First, can we appreciate how pretty this stitch is? I don't know about you, but when I'm working up the even moss stitch, I just revel in how simple it is and just how much texture it gives. I love the texture on this, and I love the texture that it gives the pumpkin, so I'm really excited about it. I hope you enjoyed crocheting it. You can see it has a nice bit of stretch to it, really nice to work with, and it'll be great for seaming our pumpkin. So before you cut your end, make sure you have quite a tail. I just pulled and pulled until I had a tail that I assumed was going to be too much. I'd rather have too much tail than not enough. You can see I've pulled quite a bit. We're going to be seaming and forming this pumpkin all with this tail. So including seaming the two ends together, cinching it up, we're going to stuff it, and then we're also going to cinch and create the little bulbs on the side of the pumpkin. So you want a very long tail. I did forget to mention in the beginning that you do need stuffing as well. I have some here down next to me. Okay, so find the end of your tail. If you cut your yarn, it's not a problem. You can always just tie it on and join it. I do like to keep mine all as one piece just to avoid ends. Okay, so I have tied it off here with the tail. It's just so that it's secure. And I'm going to take my tapestry needle and thread it. I pull the tail like pretty far through, so that way I'm not having to pull quite as much. Okay, so from here what we want to do is we want to seam the starting chain and our ending row together. So really your side should look exactly the same, so there's not really any right or wrong side, just choose which one looks better to you and you can fold them together. You'll have this tail here and weave it in. I just kind of tuck it. Don't tell my Nana. Alright, so in this we're just going to use just a quick seam. We're going to pull it really tight, so I just go into this first stitch here and into this stitch here on this, okay, and just pull it through. Okay, pull that really tight, and on this first one I'm going to go through them again just to really make sure that they're secure. Okay, and so we're just going to follow down the row, going under that first chain and into the stitch that corresponds next to it, and just seam it all the way down. If you prefer to do a different sort of seam, you could use the mattress seam. Whatever seam you want to do is fine. I have used this seam because I think it shows a little bit less and I can pull it really tight. Okay, so just continue seaming until you get to the end of the seam. Now remember, when you get to the end of the seam, don't cut your yarn. We're still going to be working with it, okay? So let's just continue, and I'll see you down on the other side. All right, last one. All right, this one I'm going to go through twice as well, just to make sure it's really secure. Okay, and then I do want to tie this end off too, just because I want this to be secure and not have so much ability to pull. So I'm just going to quickly, with all the ends, kind of go through it again to make this loop and thread it through the loop again, just to tie it off. Okay, and pull that tight, and do that one more time. Okay, so now we have a tube. So the seam looks a bit obvious there. So if you actually just turn the tube inside out, you can't really see the seam anymore. So it's a really easy seam to do, and it's really not noticeable. Okay, so now what we want to do, make sure our yarn is on the right side. All right, so now we want to cinch. So this is essentially going to be the bottom of our pumpkin. So what we want to do is cinch this closed. So you might be familiar with this, and if you are, just go ahead and get to work. If you're not, I'll show you how. Basically, all you want to do to cinch this is take your tapestry needle and weave it in and out of the rows all the way around. So I'm just going to insert it into this first one, first row, and out the second, and I just keep doing that, and then pull it through every so many stitches and run into a knot. So just kind of do that all the way around. You can pull it tight as you go, or you can wait until the end to pull it tight. That's up to you. Sometimes it's easier to wait to the end, and sometimes it's easier to pull it tight as you go. So that's really your decision, whatever works best for you. Remember that a lot of crochet, while there are rules and things that you should do, remember that you're crocheting to make yourself happy and to enjoy something. So, you know, while there are rules and there are techniques, you should always make sure that you're happy with what you're doing, okay? So go ahead and just seam it, cinch it. You're gonna get a little bit of an arm workout, but you can see here already I have these first few stitches, and if I just hold this and pull here, it's starting to cinch it. Okay, so do that all the way around until you come back to this beginning bit. It might be helpful to place a stitch marker here if you need it, but otherwise you should be able to see how it's cinched. Okay, so I'll meet you around the other side. Alright, so I'm almost back to the other side. Now I'm just going to do these last few stitches. And I'm going to pull this through. So I went ahead and didn't pull the seam tight as I worked, but you can already see the difference in it's starting to cinch itself up. So now I'm just going to hold this in tight and pull it. You might have to get a little aggressive with it to pull it tight, but don't worry, if you pull on it, it'll pull tight for you. Now, because this stitch is kind of thick, you're going to run into seeing this hole here, and that you may not feel like you can really pull it much tighter. So don't worry about that. If you have a hole like this, we can close it. You can simply just sew the ends together. So if you run into this issue, don't worry. Just place your needle kind of around the hole. And you can sew it up tight, and then just do it for the other side as well. Make sure to go through a few of the edges here. This is the bottom, so you really want it to be tight so none of your stuffing falls out. The top of the pumpkin we'll leave a little bit open so we can put our embellishment in, but this bottom bit you really want to have tight, okay? So just make sure it's quite secure, and don't worry about all these ruffles. This is a good thing. That's perfect for a pumpkin, okay? Right, so now we're cinched. You can see now it's got, kind of looks like a beanie, like a little beanie. And this is one of the ways that you can make a beanie by doing it flat and then cinching it. So it's quite similar. Okay, so now we want to stuff it, the best part. So we're just going to put our hook back through the bottom. Sorry, put the needle back through the bottom and pull all of your tail yarn through. So it's kind of just hanging out here. And we're going to want to stuff the pumpkin firmly and make sure that it maintains the round shape. Sometimes when you stuff, you can kind of overstuff over here and understuff here, and it gets a bit strange. So just keep putting stuffing in until it feels firm and is relatively round. Remember that we will be cinching here, and we will eventually be pulling it kind of down like this. So you don't have to like really stuff it, but do make sure that it's a firm stuff and that it stays relatively round. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stuff mine now. make sure your tail is hanging out here while you stuff. So you don't want to lose that. See how he's kind of wonky shaped? So just want to add some more. You don't want to overstuff it to the point that your stitches start pulling and showing the stuffing inside, so do be aware of that as well. But this is pretty well stuffed now. Got some hanging out in the top. Remember, we are going to cinch this, so as long as you can, you know, kind of pull it with your hands to cinch and stuffing still isn't sticking out of the top, you'll be fine. It's going to look like an awkward water balloon for a minute, but that's okay. So once you're stuffed, pull this up just a bit. There we go. So once you're stuffed, we're going to cinch the top as well. You should have your tail yarn kind of hanging out the side here. And one thing that I like to do to just secure it, again, because you can pull and it'll end up pulling this bottom bit. See how it's pulling it? I like to secure it here, so I just kind of tie it in one of these stitches just to secure. All right. So there it's tied off. See, it's not pulling that bottom bit anymore. And we're just going to seam this side the same way that we did before. We don't have to make it quite so tight as we did the bottom. So go ahead and seam just like we did the bottom, and I'll meet you back around. Alright, so I'm back around. I've placed the yarn in a cinching method all the way around, and I've kind of noticed that my bottom bit looks a bit off, so I'm just going to double check my stuffing and kind of push it around. Once we have this seamed, you won't be able to get in there and move stuff around as much anymore, so make sure to double check your stuffing before we pull this tight, and make sure your pumpkin isn't too wonky. Okay, so that's better. And you can see he looks a bit tall right now, but after we cinch it, we are going to pull it down, so it's not going to be quite as big. Okay, so back to the cinching. I've placed it all the way around the edge, and I'm just going to pull this tight. Make sure your stuffing stays down in there. When you're pulling this, you want to make sure that your hole stays big enough for whatever you've decided to embellish this with. Okay, so you can kind of just put your embellishment in there and pull it tight enough that this still can fit in and out, but isn't so big that it shows, you know, a bunch of yarn through there. So go ahead and make sure that that fits. And once you've maintained that that's a good size, you're going to want to tie this off, but don't cut it yet. So just kind of go through one of these neighboring stitches here and just tie it off with a standard knot. Okay. This can be tricky. You might enlist someone to help you because you want to hold this tight while making this knot, and if you're anything like me, my left hand can't do anything, so hold this tight and make the knot. And I'm making mine by just taking that tail end through. So you can see I have pulled it tight here. Okay, so there's one. There's my big loop, and I'm going to go through it again just to make sure. Nice and tight. Okay, we're almost there. You might notice that it looks a bit wonky right now. Don't worry, we're going to get to shaping it. Okay, so now what we want to do in the shaping is we essentially want to take this yarn, wrap it around the pumpkin, put our needle back up through and pull it tight. So you will notice that just doing that, like even when you just are holding it, see how it starts making the dimples, sorry, the pumpkin dimples? So we're just going to do that all the way around, and you'll notice that it will start making your pumpkin a bit more like squat and shorter and more pumpkin shaped. Okay, so with your tail yarn, you can wrap it around. You can make it kind of in between these if you like. It'll force these around too, but sometimes it's nice to work it with what's organically happened here. Okay, so we're going to wrap around to the bottom. Just going to thread the needle through, go up through the stuffing, and you might have to search for the needle, but it should push right up. Pull your yarn through. It's gonna, if it's anything like mine, it's gonna knot on you, sorry. Alright, there we go. So pull it tight. Before you start pulling it too tight, make sure it's where you want it. So I like to make sure that it's in between these half double crochets where the third loop sticks out, just because then it'll pull it nice and tight there. Make sure it's where you want it and yank that puppy tight. See? Okay. And I like to do it twice just for good measure. So I wrap it through the same one, insert in the same area, push the needle back up through, and pull it tight again. See, now I don't have to really hold that yarn tight, it's holding its shape pretty well. Okay? So we want to continue doing this around until we have enough of these divots here to make it look like a pumpkin. You could do as many or as few as you like. I typically like to have about 6 of them, just because it's a nice even number. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing this. I do work mine upside down. I do find it easier to work with this side at the top for some reason, but whatever way is more comfortable for you. So to do it again, I'm just going to take this yarn, I'm going to thread it through the bottom of the hair, just so that it doesn't cross over the top bit and get in the way. So see how it's hidden that? If you cross it like over like this, you'll just have a bunch of ends peeking out and it'll just kind of look weird. Okay, so try to hide those whenever possible. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap it. And what you can do before you even thread it through is you can, see how I haven't threaded it? You can pull it a bit tight and just kind of hold it there and double check to make sure that you like the way that looks before you commit to it. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to go ahead and push the needle through the bottom and oh, it's way over here. Okay, push it through the bottom and back up through the top. It's not quite tight yet, but I'm making sure that it's in between the stitches like I like it. Just double checking. Pull it tight. wrap again, and go through the bottom and up through the top. Okay, so we're getting there. You can see the other sides are starting to get a bit weird, like kind of bulbous, because you haven't formed those yet, but don't worry, as you work around they'll start to become a bit more uniform. Now, if while you're working this you notice that this, you know, let's say this bit here wasn't quite as full as I wanted it to be, you can sneak some more stuffing in very carefully. It's going to be a bit of a stretch, but you can try and sneak some more in, or just kind of pull and push on it, and it'll form right. Okay, so just keep using that method and work your way around until you have as many bulbs as you like. Okay, I'm going to finish mine here with you. Alright, we're almost there. You see how funny this one looks? With like how cute all the other little bits are, and then this one's just like whoop. So let's fix that and finish off this pumpkin. Alright, so once again I'm just checking to make sure, checking to make sure I like where it's at. I'm threading the needle up and through. Okay, check that again and give it a yank. Okay, and just pulling through one more time to secure it. Okay, there it is. Look at how cute it is from the side. You can see that mine aren't all even. I like an organic feel, and that's really why I chose the even moss stitch, because it has a bit of grittiness to it. I think it looks like a pumpkin that, you know, was raised on a farm, or grown on a farm. So, you know, I really like the organic feel, and I'm not worried about perfection. You know, these are super cute the way they are, and if you are sitting here worrying about perfection or trying to make it perfect, you know, don't worry about it. It's meant to be organic. Okay, so you can see I've got a big one here, kind of a smaller one here, bigger one, but I like it. Okay, so one thing that we want to double check now before we finish off and cut off ridiculously long tail. We want to make sure that this stick still fits in here, and that it's not too big. So see how me kind of pulling the yarn around and like pulling on these has made it a little too big. You can kind of see there. Just made that area a little too big. You might have to kind of dig a hole in your stuffing to get your stick or your cinnamon stick in there, whatever it is you want to do. Just a little too big, so you can actually fix this if you're worried about it. If you're not worried about it, go ahead and finish off your yarn and tie in the ends. But if you are worried, you can kind of just sew kind of around this area here. See, I'm just taking this bit and just kind of sewing around. Similar to the cinching that we did earlier. You might have to manhandle this a little bit. It's quite tight. But you can cinch it down some. Okay. So just taking a few stitches out. You'll never see this cinch. Like, it's totally, you know, you're using the same color yarn. It's pretty well hidden, so you don't have to worry about anyone noticing that. Okay, and last one. And when you pull on this, see, it'll tighten that up for you, and then you can put your stick in, and it's so much better. So you can definitely tighten that. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take my stick out, and we just want to tie off our yarn and weave it back in. Because this is purely decorative, you can just tie it off and kind of weave the ends back into the center, or you can do the whole weaving method. This is decorative. It's not meant to be a toy for children or anything, so I'm not too worried about it. I kind of just tie it off a few times and then put my ends in. Okay, so I'm just going to do that quickly. Just kind of go through one of these hidden stitches down here that's kind of in between, and I'm going to give that a good tie off. You know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to trim all this ridiculous length of yarn. So while you do need a long length of yarn, maybe not quite as long as I made mine. Mine did knot a few times, which was a bit annoying, but it's all part of the process, right? Okay. Alright, so I've done like a triple knot. I'm just going to put this back through to hide that end. I'm going to give it a trim. Okay, and da-da-da-da! Pumpkin. Isn't it cute? I have another stick here as well. You can pick and trade. That one's so much better. I love that this is like broken and, you know, kind of been through some stuff, so you can really, there you go, really think that like this is a pumpkin picked from the vine, you know? I like that organic kind of messy feel, but if you don't, if you want to, you know, do something else, do a better stick like this one, you know, that's fine too. If you want to do a cinnamon stick, whatever it is you want to finish your pumpkin, you know, that's all there is to it. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy, and mostly I made this video because I want you guys to feel confident forming the pumpkin, but otherwise it's super cute, and I'll show you a few others that I've made. My best friend is very into Halloween, so I've made her a purple one. Doesn't have its stick yet, and a black one as well. So you can see, even though it's black and isn't the best to work with, it's still got quite a ton of personality. You can just put the stick in that one too. It's cute, right? Alright, So I hope that you've loved making your pumpkin, and I hope that you make many. Like I said throughout this whole thing, do what makes you happy. And if you want to make pumpkins that are smaller, bigger, in different funky colors, whatever you like. I made a few in blue. I just showed you a purple and a black one. So these pumpkins are yours. Make them however, makes you happy. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like the written pattern, or if you'd like links to any of the products that I've used today, you can find them all in the description below. You can also find links to my blog and my social media where I hang out and, chat with everyone and show off my designs that are coming up, okay? I hope you love your pumpkin, and I hope you have a wonderful day.